Well, hello everyone. It is John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. It's great to be with you on the Inspirations for Your Life show. Thanks so much for joining me here. If this is your very first time with me, I want to take the opportunity to definitely say welcome and thank you so much for joining me here on the show. Really do appreciate that. If you've been here one time or 100 times or many other times before, I definitely want to say thank you, but I want to say the words welcome back. So it's great to have people that enjoy the quality and content of my show. If you're thirsty, if you're hungry, or like myself, I've got a delicious decaf hot tea here, and it's pretty delicious and it's nice and hot. So, yeah, great to have that here. Great to have you here. This is our show, and we have a master topic. We'll get into that in just a second. Don't forget to check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. And don't forget, guys, if you're thirsty or hungry or parched, feel free to go get yourself something. All right. All right, guys. So the master topic for the week of Inspirations for Your Life, we'll get to that in just a second. But I think it's an important thing for us to realize, because the master topic is what sets the tone for the entire week. I think that's a very important thing for all of us to understand, and that's where I get the rest of the show concepts, because they have to meld into that, so it has to make sense. And that topic, ladies and gentlemen, is how people adjust when life shifts, and that usually happens unexpectedly, right? Yeah. So this is Inspirations for Your Life. I'm John C. Morley. I'm a serial entrepreneur, engineer, marketing specialist, video producer, podcast host, coach, keynote speaker, graduate student, passionate lifelong learner, and now, ladies and gentlemen, a published author. And I am so grateful to be with all of you guys here today. So let's get right into it. So welcome everyone to the Inspirations for Your Life show. Today, we're continuing the journey into how human performance begins to restructure itself when systems stop reacting randomly and start operating with clarity and intention. This episode is about control, and a way that maybe we haven't talked about before. And so that's a control that um, can actually help us can help us become better. But sometimes, it doesn't seem like it's better. I think that's probably the biggest thing is we're talking about control systems. The moment we're scared, execution becomes something different, to reform into a structured flow. Not motivation, guys, not motivation, not a mindset, but operational behavior under real world conditions. When attention stabilizes, everything downstream stabilizes with it. So let's break it down together. All right. Number one, and that is very importantly, we're talking tonight all about the control system rebuild and how this begins. Number one is workflow. Control begins and becomes structured again. A lot of times people can't do anything because they're on the fence about things. All right. And when we get control back, we have our structure. We're able to get back on track and become more efficient again. Number two, guys, attention management becomes intentional. Number three, tasks and the execution of them become organized. I said you need to have consistency and you need to have structure. Without one of those, you are not going to be successful. Okay. So I think that's an important thing to actually understand. Number four, guys, input processing becomes regulated. And when it can become regulated, we can get back on our track. Okay. Number five, output timing becomes consistent. The output timing becomes consistent. I think when we can know that we have dependability, reliability, and consistency, we're able to take a breath. We're able to step back for, just a moment or two. Number six, guys, decision-making becomes structured once again. I think when that moment happens where everything kind of falls apart, like the kitchen sink and the walls and everything, we don't know what to do. We don't know why to do it, but all we know is that we get so frustrated that we don't think there's anything we can do. But really, we can. We just have to basically stop the chattering monkeys in our head, right? Number 7, guys, cognitive load becomes controlled. The mind load that we put on ourselves and other people put on us, it becomes more manageable now because it's in control. It's not, running all over the place. Number 8, guys, task flow becomes predictable. We know what goes in and we know what's going to come out, right? Not only the throughput, so we know how much is going to come out, and we also know any type of challenges that we're going to possibly hit because we've done it before. Number 9, guys, work boundaries become enforced. And I say this to you because when a work boundary becomes enforced, we approach that differently than other parts of our life, right? We approach it differently. But I think that's another important one to think about, guys. Another important one to think about is boundaries. A lot of times boundaries at work, we just let them slip. It's like, oh, I'm at work, so I have to do whatever they say. No, you don't have to do whatever they say. You need to do your job description, but you don't need to be manipulated into doing whatever you want. See, that's manipulation. And a lot of companies think, well, he's going to do whatever I tell him because, if not, he knows so he'll get fired. That's wrong. That's abuse, guys. That is firm abuse. Number 10, guys, execution rhythm becomes stable. So our life is about execution. It is about rhythms. It is about a structure. And I think that structure allows us to be on point, but also allows us to now be consistent. It allows us to have a flow. It allows us to have a throughput, even when we thought that wasn't even possible. At this stage, the first shift is not speed, guys. It is performance that we want to increase. So our performance increases when we know how to do something, right? I'll give an example. Maybe you've folded papers before when you were younger and you had to fold them and stuff an envelope. And now when you did it in the beginning, it was like, oh, this is hard, right? Or it's time consuming. But the more you did it, you know how it folds, you know what goes into what, you know what envelope it goes into. And it just becomes like second nature to you. And I think that's a very important thing. It is structure and this returns. And because of it, our behavior changes for the better, obviously. And I know a lot of you out there saying, John, you don't understand my situation. No, I do understand your situation. But I think a lot of people out there make the situation worse than what it really is. Information flow, guys, stabilization. Number 11, information intake becomes filtered. We start to be biased on what's coming in and how we respond. Do we want to do that? No. But we've found ourselves doing it because maybe we're too overwhelmed with the amount of information. So when you don't have a system, you get overwhelmed. You get burdened. Okay? You get stressed. When we have a system, we can run through it. Analogy I can give you is, you remember the I Love Lucy show, right? With Lucy and Ethel. And you remember when they had the chocolate belt. Well, they had the chocolate belt, and basically you take the chocolate, you put it off, and again, it was pretty straightforward, and they were getting it. And as soon as the lady comes out and sees that they're doing fine, she goes, okay, speed it up. So now they speed up the belt, and they're putting things in their clothes and all kinds of stuff, and they didn't really have a system. The system wasn't keeping up with the way it was working. So they were eating some, putting some down, right? So the system was not known well enough. I think because they just started, they were not hand-eye coordinated as well as they should have been, right? Well, they just started. They just were working in the candy business one day. Number 12, guys, focus becomes system-driven. When we focus, when we put our attention on something, that then becomes much easier for us and for everyone else. Okay. I think that's another important thing that people don't understand. We have to realize that when we get focused, okay, that becomes our system and we are driven to do even more. Number 13, guys, planning becomes consistent. When we know what to anticipate, we may not know every situation, but we know pretty much what worst case scenario of, the chocolates are going to be. We know how this is going to work. And I think a lot of people feel that they just don't know. Sometimes we need to slow down. That was not what they did in the Lucy and the what do you call it? The show, with Ethel and Lucy and I Love Lucy. That was not what they did. They sped it up. Number 14, guys. Number 14 is all about productivity becoming structured again. So when our productivity falls into a structure, we get more done. But not only do we get more done, we get it done right. We don't have to go and do it again and again and again and again. Number 15, guys, attention becomes self-regulated. Attention becomes self-regulated. We're not trying to use processes outside. We're just trying to use what we have inside us. I think that's how that actually works, right? So attention becomes self-regulated, and it helps us to complete what we need. And it also takes out the level of stress that might be around us, okay? So I think that's an important piece, is that it takes out that level of stress that, might be around us. Number 16, guys, workflow becomes managed. When a workflow becomes managed, we have an assembly line. We have a system. We have a flow, right? So much comes in, so much comes out, and it's in a system. The reason Ethel and Lucy didn't do so well is that they didn't really know the system. They did well on the slow part, but then suddenly, when they sped up the belt, they couldn't do it. And it's because they didn't have the system down well enough before they sped the belt up. So, number 17, guys, output becomes controlled. When the output becomes controlled, we have regulation. We have more structure. We also have consistency. And you know what we have? We have quality. We have quality. Number 18, guys, task systems become aligned. When your task and the planes line up, things become so much easier for you. So much easier. Number 19, execution becomes repeatable. Execution becomes repeatable. When we repeat something over and over again, I think I've used the analogy with baking. If you bake something a certain way and you do it again and again, that recipe, you're going to get the same amount, right, that you get every time. And you're going to hopefully get the same results if you follow the same directions. That's key. So execution will become repeatable when it becomes second nature. But we can't rush that process. That's probably what I'm trying to say here. Number 20, guys, cognitive structure becomes stable. So the cognitive structure is when we're doing these things physically, and our brain is like, okay, let's say I'm stuffing an envelope, right? And so the process might start by the envelope here. I open the envelope, okay? Then I need to basically take the small card, put it in the envelope, seal it, okay? And then I need to take another let's say, envelope, put that in. Then I need to follow the letter, put that in, close it up. So that becomes it. But the brain has to do a few things, and it's not aligned with how to do it. But the more we do it, the more that flow just sort of happens naturally. This happens with anything you learn. If you don't get something right away, don't stress about it, okay? You can do it if you understand. If you understand. I think that's a very important thing to know, that you can do these things. Okay, you can do it. I think sometimes people don't know what things mean because they try to finish everything from the end, but they don't have a clue of how to do it themselves. And then they try to make it go faster. How do you get something to go faster You don't even know how to do it. Do you remember tying your shoelace or maybe tying your tie? How could you ever do it twice as fast or 3 times as fast if you don't even know how to do it in regular speed? I think that's a very important thing for us to understand. We have to first slow down. We have to first crawl. Then we have to walk before we can run. Too many people rush to run, and then they get hurt or something happens, or they get frustrated because they can't go where they want to be. I think that's a very important thing, guys. A very important thing. So, what changes here, guys, is not the workload. It's how input is processed before it becomes action. In the I Love Lucy show with Ethel, their mind wasn't thinking with what the next step meant. They were opening, the candy, the thing, but they didn't have the boxes ready. They were not ready with where they had to go. They were not set up in a process. They probably should have had some boxes ready so they could have went through and then they could go through, right? But they weren't really prepared. And I said before that if you fail to plan, you have planned to fail. I mean, that is just the truth, guys. Decision and execution, alignment. Decision cycles become clear the more we do them. Number 22, workflow becomes organized. When the workflow becomes organized, you know what happens? We get the task done. We get it done right, and we don't have to worry about doing it wrong because now we know what's expected. Number 23, guys, input becomes limited and structured. So when our input is now limited and it's more structured, we can respond better because we don't have a million different permutations and evaluations to be looking at, combinations, different variables of different things. When we limit the options, the task gets easier, gets less complex. Output becomes consistent. That's the key. It becomes easier to recognize patterns, etc. Number 25, guys, attention becomes reliable. Execution becomes disciplined. And workflow, well, that becomes stable. That becomes stable, okay? And that's a very important thing, that workflow becomes stable. But it doesn't become stable, guys, overnight. That's what I have to tell you. It doesn't become stable overnight. No way. It does not. Number 28, productivity becomes controlled. When we are able to do these things, things change for us. Okay? Things change for us. I think that's a very important thing for us to all realize, that things will change for us when we do that. But too many people get upset because they can't do it right this moment, right? And they figure that, oh, well, if I can't do it right this moment, then I can never do it. I could never do it. That's important, right? We have to do it the right way. We have to do it with structure. We have to be consistent. If we can't do that, then we're going to be disappointing ourselves an awful lot. We're going to be making a lot of mistakes, but mistakes we keep making and we're not learning from them. And that's the biggest waste of our time and our resources. It's okay to make mistakes. You can make as many as you want, but don't make the same mistakes over and over and over again. We have to learn from the mistakes. We have to learn from those mistakes. That is ultimately, guys, the biggest key I can share with you. We must learn from those mistakes. Number 29, control system becomes active. So when a control system becomes active, it helps regulate our mind and our physical actions that we take. To use the analogy of Lucy, right, with the thing. So the question you might be asking is, so how do you get up to speed to box lots of chocolates from, let's say, a fast assembly line? And Get up to speed with the high-speed top box or loading system and chocolate assembly line involves a combination of ergonomic, station setup, strategic workflow techniques, and, when possible, automating or modifying the line to handle high volume repetitive tasks. And so I think when we can understand that, we can realize that we can be more efficient. So the station layout. First, position the conveyor belt boxes and chocolate supply within immediate reach of the distance to being able to grab and minimize body movement as much as possible. Gravity feed in feed. So use sloped or gravity fed trays to bring chocolates closer to the packer's hands. In the movie, they just had them going down. You had to pick them up. If they would have been like dropping in their hands, they could just pick them up. That would have been a lot easier. Positioning, work from one side of the track to reduce reaching. Utilize conveyor rotation systems that turn items for easier access. Tools like use cold, clean hands or lightweight food safe tongs to handle chocolates, reducing melting and increasing the speed, right? Get the chocolate on your hand. Well, that's not going to be very fun. You heard the saying, M&Ms, they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. Well, when your hands get warm, they melt in your hand, unfortunately. So workflow and packaging strategies, right? You have batching. Rather than attempting to complete one full box at a time, use batching. Pick magnets, filters first, and then all the chocolates in one motion, and then you cap it. The buffer approach. Similar accumulating table. Line to run fast while providing a buffer that slows down the product, giving workers time to pack without getting overwhelmed. That's important, that after a certain time, you have to figure out when that buffer needs to be put in place. Top box, when top loading, use two-handed rhythmic and continuous movement. Avoid pausing. Aim for steady rhythmic flow in a fluid motion. And pre-fill the boxes. Now, have another operator pre-open the boxes or prepare the boxes so the packer only focuses on filling. When we give somebody one task, it's a lot easier to focus on one task than to focus on multiple tasks. Process and mechanical improvements. Line balancing. Ensure the conveyor speed matches the packing capacity. That was not the case in I Love Lucy. If the line is too fast, the bottleneck needs to be addressed through reorganizing the floor plan. Automation. Utilize robotic pick and place systems such as top tier's automated case palletizers, which can handle repetitive, high-speed tasks faster than humans can. Standardization process, create standard SOPs, standard operating procedures for packing, training employees to follow specific uniform motion to reduce errors and wasted time. Packing material management, ensure packing such as dividers or trays is easily accessible and requires minimal effort to insert. So these are all things that we have to pay attention to. But in the movie, they were just trying to show you an analogy that, they couldn't keep up because, they were trying to start this job. But if that would have done properly, that would have not been the way it works in a typical candy factory, to be honest with you. So number 30, functional control restored. The functional control has to do with the execution of the way the task is being handled. Let me give you an example. A functional control for packaging top chocolates. One is we open the box, right? Somebody opens the box. 2, they push the box to me. 3, I grab a chocolate. 4, I grab a, let's say a vanilla, put in the box. I push to the next person. That person closes the box, seals it, and puts it down. And you have people to go through the assembly line. Because when you have somebody switching tasks, it gets complicated and people have the ability to make mistakes. Machines can switch tasks very quickly and they don't make mistakes. Humans can't switch tasks very quickly or very easily. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is where performance stops being reactive. I've talked about reactive versus proactive. It's always better to be proactive. And it starts to become repeatable. I think when we can see a process being repeatable, we change. We get successful. What is actually happening is what we are really observing is not improvement, guys, in effort. It's improvement in a structure, in a flow, in a system, right? And a system doesn't have to be a machine. A system can just be the way an assembly line flows or who's doing what at what time, right? Because when structure returns, right, execution stops fighting itself. You're no longer dealing with a tug of war. You're all going in the same direction. And that's not hard to understand, but a lot of people just want to say, oh, well, just this time I'm going to take care of it. And then it's always this time and this time and this time. And it never gets better. And in fact, people just take for granted, oh, I guess I'll just let you do it. And that's really bad. So people often misinterpret this stage as slowing down, but it's not slowing down. That's the key. But in reality, it is a stabilization before we can accelerate. So we can go faster once we know the mechanics of the operation. Why people miss the stage? Most people look for faster output, but they ignore the phase where output becomes reliable again. They feel this is a necessary step, and it's very necessary. Without reliability, speed does not matter, right? Whether we do something really fast and we keep making mistakes, doesn't matter how quickly we're going because we're going to have to redo them all again. You do not scale chaos. You shouldn't. You stabilize first, and then you're able to stabilize things. But you first have to get your hand on chaos. And chaos happens because there's too many mixed communications. Real world effects, when control systems return, you see fewer interruptions in execution, clearer task sequencing, reduced cognitive overload of the brain, improved decision accuracy, more predictable output, not because effort increased, but because fragmentation decreased. That is a very big key. Final insight for you guys today is performance is not created at peak effort. It's created within a structured environment or consistency. And consistency only exists when attention, input, and execution are perfectly aligned with each other. In closing, guys, I think we need to understand that control is what can give us peace and serenity. When we have control, we do have freedom. In closing, I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. This has been Inspirations for Your Life. And remember, guys, you do not improve output by pushing harder. You improve output by restoring structure and creating SOPs that allow workflow to push through easily with the least amount of effort. Have yourself a great rest of your day or evening, and I'll catch you on a new show or episode or content real soon. Be well, everyone.